Welcome GRD 122, Graphic Design 2, and we're going to start discussing our next project, and that project is going to be doing some illustration work. We've been doing a lot of effects work and even some video work, but we're going to get back to some illustration. We can do that with Figma, and it's still going to be for packaging, it's going to be for branding, and we're going to focus on craft beer. Now I know you're thinking, Homa just likes craft beer and wants to focus on that, but the craft beer market is thriving, and the packaging for a lot of their brands is really thriving. We've even had somebody call the college asking about people to do some illustration for their brands for a Hackettstown brewing company. And I'm going to focus on Victory only because this is something that came up recently. Victory Brewing is a suburb of Philadelphia brewing company. They started in Downingtown, I think, but now they have distribution all over the country. Especially the down south and most of the northeast. And they're a very popular brand, and they're teamed up with other brands like Southern Tier, and they have very interesting packaging, and they're very popular, especially with younger people too. And that's why I wanted to kind of get into it. And their packaging is very consistent, and they have nice branding of their cans. And one of the things that I like is this one down here, Victory Classic. And I'm bringing this up because I think it needs a brand update for that particular brand. And if you look at these, you could probably tell me yourself what you think. They got monkeys and cool things, Liberty Bells with hops over here. They have the Hop Devil. They have this kind of Prima Pills with a crown on it. They have Dirt Wolf. They have Cloud Walker, this cool plane. They have all this. And they have this classic car, which is okay. And they haven't even distributed this in 2 years. And I even contacted them, and they said they're not going to distribute it in cans. And I'm wondering why. It's a classic lager. It's the only lager they have. And one of the things I suggested, I'm like, maybe you should update your packaging because it looks like it's what? It looks like it's geared towards people my age or older. I mean, it's cool they have a classic car. It looks like some kind of Impala or something from like the late 60s, early 70s with some dice hanging on there. You're talking about people's grandpas that this would be interesting to. Now, I know the word classic invokes classic cars and things like that, but I don't know if that's really going to grab young people. It just looks like a beer for older people. And I don't think it sells that well, and I think that's why they're not putting it in cans. They serve it at the brewery and people love it, but the cans, I don't know if the cans have done that well. Yet all their other stuff is really cool looking stuff. Look at all this Sour Monkey, Golden Monkey. They have a lot of cool stuff, and they're really a popular brand, and this one has languished. And I think it's because it looks like it's for old people. Looks like it's for someone like me, mid-50s or older, in the 60s. And a lot of times, if that's your market, a lot of times those people aren't going to be drinking Victory Classic. They're going to be buying Miller Lite and cheap stuff like that they drank all their life. They're not going to be drinking this. So we need to kind of get this to a younger crowd. There's a lot of younger people who are drinking more lighter ABV. And what I mean by lighter ABV, they don't have as much alcohol. People are more concerned about their health, their driving, and things like that. They don't want to be drinking things that are like 8% alcohol. Look at this, 9% alcohol. I mean, that's like booze. Some of this stuff is really strong stuff. But this is not. It's a lighter kind of beer, but it's a very tasty craft beer. But people aren't buying it in cans, so they're not putting it out, and I think it's because of the packaging. So I thought it'd be a cool project for us to redo the packaging. Now, we could do everything on here. We could do the Victory logo. We could match it as close as we can and still stay within the format that they're using. But I'd like us to do another illustration of this because I think this kind of Impala kind of car is like a grandpa car. Yes, it's classic, but is it what you think of classic? You don't have to have a car. I mean, you could have a guitar. You could have all kinds of classic things. Now, let me just show you something here. What I'd like to do is look up classic cars. You could look up classic guitars. You could look up classic anything, but maybe even if you stuck with the car theme, if you did something more like a classic Corvette or a sports car or something like that, there's some really cool looking cars that may look better than this one here, this old Impala. It just looks like a grandpa car. It's not really, it's classic, but it's not really something that I think younger people are going to gravitate to. Even the color, all these other ones have kind of dark backgrounds with stars, and this is kind of light. Now, this one's light too, this Brotherly Love one, but it has a lot of blue on it. It has a lot of color. But it'd be nice if they kind of brought some of that color in, brought a little color into classic, and you had color in the car too. But I'm thinking of doing some kind of illustration, and again, it has to be simplified because if you look at some of this stuff here, let me zoom in here. If you can look at this, and I'll post all this. this airplane, it's illustration. Now, it's really good illustration. This is not, something you're going to throw together in 5 minutes. This car isn't a really great illustrated car, but some of this stuff is illustrated really nice. It's a little more on the cartoon side. It's not super detailed, but they have hops in them. They have all kinds of stuff, monkeys, all kinds of weird stuff. But I just think that this label is not really working for them. So we want to make something that's really cool and, suggest it to them. I talk to these guys on Facebook, so we could suggest something to them so they do something with kind of a cooler car. I mean, look at this cool airplane, Cloudwalker. That looks cool. This, I don't know if it looks as cool. This looks like something Grandpa would want. So we're going to try to update it and maybe find a classic car, maybe find a classic guitar or anything else you could think of that's a little more classic. It doesn't have to be a sports car. It could be anything. It could be from the 50s. It could be a 57 Chevy, something like this. It could be a Corvette. I just looked up Corvettes because they're a little sporty, yet they're still classic. They've been around for a long time. And the idea is we're going to try and illustrate something like this, and I'm going to do a practice exercise with this first and kind of go through it. And I'll record videos on that and how to kind of layer it. We've done illustration before where we've done portraits of people and worked on scenery and stuff like that. But I think it'd be nice to do some illustration that was used in branding. Because if you want to get a job in graphic design, branding is going to be where it's at. They don't just want to see a picture of scenery. If you can illustrate a car really nice and put it on a label of craft beer, that would be awesome. So that's what I want to work towards for this project. I haven't done this before, but I thought it would be something neat to work on since I interact with beer companies a lot. And what I would like you to do first in your discussion is actually look at this stuff again and just give me some feedback on it. Just because I say this is geared towards old people, maybe you don't think that. Maybe you like some of this stuff. Maybe you have ideas for this. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think young people might like this. So I want you to look at these things, tell what you like about it, see what similarities there are, think of different colors you might suggest for this. So in your discussion, to get started, kind of throw out some ideas for this. Maybe there's other classic things you could throw in there other than a car. I know people think of car, but maybe there's classic music. There's classic, rockets or something. I don't know. The space race, something like that. Maybe there's something more classic that can work than just kind of an old kind of early 70s car here is what I'm thinking, or late 60s kind of car here. I think this is a late 60s car. I don't know cars but that well, but I just know cars that we had because I grew up in in the 70s and there were a lot of these around. But that's what we're going to work towards. So you're going to start off with your discussion first. It's going to be about this. So I'm going to post this, and I even have a animated GIF where it kind of goes through all of these. And if you want to look up Victory Brewing, just find some details about them. Knowing as much about the company is very good in terms of developing this, but we want to do something that, these are cool labels, and a lot of people really like this stuff. This stuff flies off the shelf, but they don't even want to put this in cans. And it's a really nice craft beer. And let's make something that they want to put in cans and they want to put out. And they'll be like, wow, this is cool stuff. Let's put it out there on shelves. Because people look at stuff on shelves. You can't try beer. You can, but you go to a beer store, you go to a liquor store, wherever you may get beer. You see the label first. People say, "Well, who cares about the label?" People care about labels. That's all they see. You can't sample beer in a beer store. But something like this may catch your eye and it may make you try it. And Victory is a very well-respected brand. So we're going to work on something like this, trying to update this Victory Classic. Still keep something that's classic. I don't know if I want to call it easy drinking lager, because since back in the day, I don't know. I think we can change that. But I still think we could keep it classic lager. Maybe I'll give some ideas on what the name can be. Maybe you'll have some ideas. But I think that would be a nice project for us to work on and to get back into some illustration, since we've been doing a lot of Photoshop type stuff. I think that'll be nice to do. So I'll kind of work on some videos and I'll show you some techniques to kind of trace over something. So you don't have to draw a car out of your head. We're going to kind of work on something and trace it and simplify it. And that's what we're going to try to do with Vector Art. So that'll be coming up. So for your discussion, start off by giving me some feedback on this stuff here, on looking at some of the brands, looking at some of the styles, seeing how they're matching up colors. Here they're using complementary colors of kind of yellow and purple, green and red. They're using complementary colors here. Here they're using monochromatic colors because they're using green and kind of yellow, which are kind of similar to each other on the color scale. Here they're pulling in some green and gray. Very cool looking kind of nighttime kind of label. Here they're using blue and orange, which is also complementary colors. So they're using complementary colors here for the most part. This is kind of an offshoot, this kind of pink and lime green. That's an offshoot of the green and red color scheme, but that's what we're going to kind of look at. So give me some feedback on some of this stuff. Talk about some of these cans and talk about some ideas for Victory Classic that we might be able to do and put together a really nice label.